at emerging sectors. And now we're moving swiftly forward to the next session, which is now going to be on Next in AI. So Next in Artificial Intelligence. And in fact, we have a panel later on as well in this segment. But first, for a very special presentation, I'd like to call on stage the Vice President of AI and Marketplace for Uber. Mr. Dinker Jain is with us. Mr. Dinker Jain, could we please have you on stage for this next presentation? Let's welcome him with a warm round of applause.
Okay, this looks like this is working. People can hear me? No, people can now hear me? All right. Okay, so my job today is to explain a little bit about what I think India can do. Everybody is fully aware of where AI is, what potential it holds, how much the world is excited about it. And I thought I'd cover 3 or 4 very specific topics on what could be next in AI for India. Okay? So I just want to kick it off by saying that it's not a secret to any of us today that we have a massive data dividend and it remains untapped. What does that mean? So if you look at the global population of internet users outside China, the developing world, and India as a big part of that, dominates that population. 75% of internet users outside China are from the developing world. And these are the people, whenever they like something, they click something, they do anything with their phones, they are generating digital data, right? That digital data is what powers all of these companies. On this list, you'll find some of the storied names in the world of AI. All of these companies are powered with AI, whether it's Google search engines, recommendations in a social media app, or anything like that. That's all AI powered. And how do these companies create all of this AI? Through user-generated data. Where is that user-generated data coming from? It's coming from the developing world. But none of these companies are originated from the developing world. So this is India's data dividend. We've talked about the demographic dividend for many decades. But this is India's data dividend and the developing world's data dividend, which remains completely untapped by our own economies. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about what AI is, actually, and what does that mean for us to attain the goal of Viksit Bharat by 2047. Now, this is machine learning, or AI, is one of the most misunderstood concepts in computing. So what I want to do is make sure, without any buzzwords, without any technical mumbo-jumbo, just explain to everybody what it is, okay? And it can be described in less than, 5 words that are on your screen. Machine learning is nothing but a function, like a programming function, that is created with data or programmed with data. That's it. There's no other mystery to this, okay? Now, what does that mean? A traditional program, the way we would write it, you would write a set of instructions. If this, then that, for I equals 1 to 20, do this, or whatever it is. So that would be what a traditional program would be. A machine learning program, on the other hand, you feed the machine large quantities of input-output pair data or other types of data, and you tell the machine to write the program itself, okay? That's the only change that has happened in this entire programming paradigm over the last few years. It's been enabled by cheaper compute, vast amounts of data that our populations are generating, and so on. But that's at the core what it is. So all AI systems are nothing but programs created with data. Now, if you think about the implications of this, many different types of computing programs could never be written the old-fashioned way. You could never write a program to recognize 8 billion faces by writing if statements or for loops. You have to use the ML programming paradigm to do a lot of these kinds of programs, okay? Now, this could mean ranking relevant ads or search results. It could mean, detecting fraud amongst millions of banking transactions, so on and so forth. Now, why is this interesting? Now, if you look at the history of technology, maybe 500-ish years, you'll see that what the printing press first did is it made the marginal cost of reproducing a handwritten book or a printed book far lower than what it used to be. And this created upheaval in Europe, where the Europeans were able to come out of the Dark Ages and have the Renaissance and the Reformation just because of the printing press, or largely in the aftermath of the printing press. Then you have the microchip and the internet, which made the marginal cost of information dissemination go to zero, so you could send emails anywhere in the world, and this created vast economic opportunities for billions of people around the world. Now, what artificial intelligence is doing is it's going to make the marginal cost of certain types of human judgment go to zero. Not information dissemination, but human judgment. Okay? What does this mean? All of us, to live our lives, rely on other people's services, whether it's a school teacher for our children, a college professor, whether it's transportation and mobility, whether it's healthcare. All of these types of services require human judgment. And if you could deliver marginal cost zero services in education and healthcare and things like that, you can fundamentally alter the life, the standard of living and the lifestyle of billions of people around the world. Okay? And this is why artificial intelligence is such a powerful technology, and in fact, it's an essential core broad-based technology to develop India and indeed to develop the world. We can do this overnight if we did it with AI. And the goal of Viksit Bharat, or a developed country, cannot be attained. It's inconceivable to think about that goal without India being a very prominent player in the field of AI. Now, if you think about three aspects, we've discussed security earlier this morning, but if you think about three aspects of what a developed country might aspire for, it is standard of living, right? And you have health and education in that, you have security, law and order. All of these things are cornerstones for a viable developed country. And AI plays a very central and very direct role in helping a country get there. Gone are the days where you have to imagine opening up hundreds of thousands of schools and training hundreds of thousands of teachers to try and get people literate. Today you can imagine an artificial intelligence app litericizing your entire population within a matter of years, right? You don't have to make those kinds of old school investments anymore to get to this goal, and that's why AI is the only path to getting to this goal. So in my estimation, the power of this technology will eclipse the printing press, the microchip, and the internet combined. Okay? It's that potent in terms of its force on humanity. So now let's keep moving forward. So we've discussed how we have a massive untapped data dividend. We've discussed how critical it is to realize the goal of a developed country. Now let's talk about something different, which is a particular angle of AI economics and what India can do to usher in a new international framework. Okay? Now, AI economics are very different than what most people imagine. It has enormous network effects, and remember, machine learning is just a function program with data, so the more data you have, the better your AI will be. It's really simple. The cheaper it'll be and the better it'll be. And on the right here, you'll see a diagram which shows air crashes per million departures. And when the Federal Aviation Authority in the US demanded that airlines share their data across each other from black boxes of plane crashes, you can see in the late 50s, the crashes drop, they drop immediately, right? And so this shows you that when companies share data or countries share data and they use that to power learning or AI, you will get much better outcomes than you would if everybody kept their little data in their own little data silo. Now, so what we need is India to step up and pioneer an international framework, not unlike the WTO, for example, or the non-aligned movement, to facilitate the creation of these path-breaking, development-focused AIs. So what the world is trending towards is, like, let's say we have 195 countries in the world. They're all trying to create their own little AI system. So each country wants to keep their data inside their little silo and create their own AI system. Now, this is data sovereignty, but the problem is it doesn't really exploit AI economics the way I described them, because what you want is to use these data network effects to create the best AIs possible by pooling the data across countries, right? Now, the alternative here is that you take the data from 195 countries, you have a smaller set of global companies that serve global AI systems. Now, obviously, this is problematic for us too, because we don't want all the power from all the countries and all the data from all the countries to be concentrated in the hands of a few companies that often escape democratic supervision, that often escape, they don't answer to our governments or courts, that do whatever they want with their data, that price AI however they want to price it, and frankly are not particularly focused on the goal of Viksit Bharat, or developing the developing world. So what do we do here? The first option, I just want to declare to this audience, is not viable. If the world goes down the first option, it'll be a huge missed opportunity for all of humanity, because we will have substandard AIs in countries, smaller countries, for example, with very poor quality AIs, or complete AI dependence on some more powerful countries. And to Mr. Harper's comments this morning, in a dog-eat-dog world, that's not particularly a situation anybody wants to find themselves in today. So what is an alternative here? So if you take the second paradigm of data from 195 countries being combined into a few globally powerful AIs, you have two choices. The first choice is sort of status quo, where a few companies in Silicon Valley are able to hoover up all of this data globally. They charge a lot. They're high-margin companies, right? They're not particularly focused on applications that will help develop the developing world either. They're not answerable to courts or governments in the global south. And that's the status quo that we have today. Another alternative is a country like India pioneers an initiative where all of the global south comes together, or even if 10 countries, frankly, or 6 countries in the global south, per my estimates, came together, you could collect 50 to 60% of the internet users' data around the world, and you could foster companies that answer to an international framework of governance, where they're answerable to courts and governments in the global south. And as a result, you could deliver really low-cost AIs globally in a way that's democratically aligned with the global south, that is subject to democratic supervision in the global south, and so on and so forth. This international framework does not exist, and frankly, this requires Indian leadership, and we're just not on track. There is no initiative that I know of that is really making this happen in the time scale that we need it to happen. Right? So this is my first provocation or first invitation to this audience today, that let's try and make this happen. It's really simple. Get the data from the global south together, put it under a framework, and let's create companies that are global to solve these kinds of AI problems that we need for doing development around the world. Okay? Now, the fourth thing that I would want to emphasize is that if you think about the world we live in, artificial intelligence and indeed AI and AI-induced companies and algorithms are basically governing, managing a large portion of everything we do. It is re-ontologizing and giving new meaning to almost everything we do, right? So whom we date, what we buy, what we believe, what gets told to us, what messages we share with our friends, how we wish people on their birthdays, how we stay in touch with people. All of these things are being induced by artificial intelligence systems and algorithms, to the point where I don't think free will is as prominent as it used to be even just 10 years ago. Okay? So now, if you're thinking about having an independent country, a democratic country, a self-reliant country, these are things that rub up against that directly, very directly. And what you have is a situation where things like our delight, our emotions, the music we listen to, our thoughts, all of this is just becoming a product of the AI industrial revolution. And that means, right, that means that to artificial intelligence systems, all of us sitting here are just bunches of numbers, feature vectors, as they're called in the term of art, talking to other feature vectors that need to be introduced to each other through recommendation systems and the like. That's all it is, okay? And so in this world, you have an AI-powered infosphere, which is becoming the principal dwelling of our consciousness. And the trouble is that this infosphere is primarily in the hands of a few powerful companies in Silicon Valley. This is absolutely diametrically opposed to any notion of self-reliance, independence, or democratic existence that we might want. Okay? Now, therefore, I would assert that the artificial intelligence systems today that are unleashed across India and, in fact, much of the world are not for or for by the people at all. Okay? And this is the problem that you need to solve. And this whole idea, the Europeans are talking about it, the Indians are now talking about it, of data sovereignty, is a very limited idea. What you need, if you want to have a polity of your own, is AI sovereignty, because AI is governing how a citizen is leading their life. And so what does this mean? So if you take, any things, I'm listing a few things here, this is not comprehensive, but if you want free speech, your communication and media distribution are governed by AI algorithms that you have no insight into. If you want competitive markets, AIs have monopolistic tendencies. If you want democratic supervision, where your regulators and courts are able to supervise how these models are built, these companies are opaque and they escape any sort of supervision from many countries in the world. If you want, to think about multiculturalism, AI systems will revert to the mean. They have what is called tyranny of the majority and monoculture. Everybody is going to, the same Croatian tomb because everybody is watching that on their Facebook feed, for example, right? I mean, you've seen this happen all over the place. Everybody in Rome goes to the same exact spot and takes the same exact selfie because that's what social media is telling them to do. Even leisure and travel is no longer individual. It's a checklist that you have to do, which AI tells you to do. So, obviously AI systems remain expensive, and that's not viable if you want to do education, healthcare, et cetera, across the global south. And lastly, most profoundly perhaps, if you want to stand for progress, AI systems are, remember, nothing but functions programmed with data. Data is a record of the past. So if AI systems were built in the 1800s, it would be perfectly okay for the AI system to say demeaning things about people with color, right? Because that would be the data that would be prevailing at the time. And therefore, that's what the AI system will learn. So if you want to stand for progress and you want to change status quo, there is no way you're getting there with just AI, especially AI controlled by a few companies. So remember, what we need is an AI sovereignty strategy, not a data sovereignty strategy, and we're far away from getting there. And in concluding motions, because I'm up against time, I will say this is my manifesto. These should be the goals that India should lead the world on, and indeed the global south on. There should be about 500 AI unicorns that are coming out of the global south by 2030. This is not an unreasonable goal. We should be targeting to be a net exporter of AI finished products by that time as well. And we need to establish a global treaty like the WTO where you have data cooperation, democratic supervision, and profit sharing of these AI companies clearly laid out, where there's good trust between multiple countries. And by the way, you only need 5 or 6 countries with the biggest populations to get there. You don't need an entire kit and caboodle of 100 countries. And lastly, I would say that you have an opportunity here in India to serve as the prime data custodian and the prime AI steward for all of this, because this is the largest data bank in the world because of the Indian population, and it's a country with established democratic and legal norms that can be extended to project this sort of leadership and soft power around the world. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for paying attention.